Hello, beautiful people. Here we are, journey through the innerverse, and we are here with a part two to our previous chat on dream incubation. I'm really, really excited to chat with you all. Alexis and I both are really excited, and we wanted to follow up with all of you on our experience with our dream incubation practice. And so that is what we will be sharing about in this episode. We'll also be primarily sharing about our dreams that we've been having in between eclipses. And we are recording this on Wednesday, October 2nd of 2024. And this is the eve, or we're still in the veil. The energy is so fresh of the the Libra solar eclipse new moon. So we're in the energy of like the intense energy, and I'm just really happy to be here. How are you doing today, Alexis?
I first of all welcome in everyone. I am so excited that we are in Libra season, and that we're in October. Like
Yes. Yeah.
this month brings so
Spooky.
much, it brings so much wonderful energy to just my being and my essence, and like this is where the season that everything is like dying and ending. I'm like like it just feels like fresh to me. It's so bizarre, but I'm really excited to be in October, and it's really like giving October weather lately. Some
Mm-hmm.
days a little warmer than I'd like, but for the most part, it's like kind of overcast and rainy and chilly and dreary and just like my weather. But I'm feeling great today. Tomorrow's my birthday, so all the excitement to that is rolling in. And yeah, how are you?
I'm well. I am also really excited about being October. And I was telling Alexis that I was a little bit jealous that, today, like her birthday is in the month of October because it's such a fun month. And I feel like it's fun to have your birthday at the beginning of the month because it's almost like you get to celebrate even like throughout the whole,
Yes.
and your birthday is not like over like shined or outshined by Halloween. So it's like you get really everyone's kind of celebrating your energy and it's like this fresh start. And so, and I know I have friends with October birthdays, but no one I'm close to. So I was really excited when I remembered that Alexis's birthday was on the 3rd. So,
Thank
Alexis,
you so much. I know we were talking about that today, and I was like, don't be jealous because having a birthday in January is such a cool, mysterious, like
dark.
nothing is overshadowing it. You're in between Christmas and New Year's and like Valentine's Day. So it's kind of like completely to yourself. And it gives this energy of like the void too, because you're in the middle of winter. So like I love the October birthdays, but I love the January birthdays too. Like it's a cool place to be. So
Yeah.
don't be jealous. But yeah, I'm really excited. This topic has been really fun, and the experience of practicing it within the week and the experience of being in between eclipses has been quite just intense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, just to recap what we discussed in the previous episode, our first chat on dream incubation, we felt inspired to have this conversation as pertaining to the astrology. We were coming up to Mercury Kazemi, which was actually on September 30th. So, it was 2 days from when we were recording this. And so, in preparation for Mercury Kazemi, and for those of you who don't know what Mercury Kazemi is, it is that perfect alignment between Mercury and the sun, and it's considered by the ancient astrologers slash astronomers as Mercury entering the heart of the sun, right? So in that divine alignment between divine intelligence, as I mentioned, and earthly intelligence, and it's a place of receiving special messages, gifts, good fortune and any experiences with that. And what I personally always, recommend and share with people is that this is a good time to either ask for clarity or ask a question or ask for healing or just whatever it is that you want to know. Maybe you don't have a specific question and you can open the space up to like, what is it that I need to know? And you can do that either in meditation, as we come to that point of the Mercury Cazimi, or, the night before the day of Mercury Cazimi, you can, ask your dreams. And in this case, as we mentioned, or as we discussed in the previous episode, you can practice dream incubation. And that was really a really nice conversation to have. And it was really inspiring. And so Alexis and I were like, we're going to do a part 2 and we're going to share with you guys what happened. So as I mentioned, that is what we're going to do. And so just to even recall or come back to what dream incubation is, essentially, it is the act of setting an intention in order to receive personal guidance and insight through your dream space. So it's a direct connection between you and your higher consciousness or your spirit guides or just your unconscious self through the realm of dreams. And so there was, just to get right into it, there were some really interesting points that we discussed, that some new things for me that I learned in my own personal research. And what I was really, just curious about and really surprised was that it was mentioned in through ancient practices is that they would actually sleep in different places. Like they, of course, they would go to like a dream temple, but it was a thing to sleep in a different place when you are seeking guidance, from your dreaming mind or your dreaming space. And I traveled this previous weekend, which the previous weekend was leading up to the Mercury Cazimi and of course this solar eclipse. And so I was a little initially, before I came across that learning, I was really like kind of discouraged because I was like, I'm not going to be at home. I'm not going to be in my private space. And then I came across this insight and I was like, oh, this is a really good opportunity to do some research and to experience what it can be like, setting a dream intention in a different space. And so before I get even into this example, Alexis, is there anything specific you want to share to this, or just want to kind of open it up to you to share?
So I really love this topic. I loved the dream analyst that we mentioned in the last episode, or part 1 of the episode, Machiel Klerk, I want to say. I did end up getting his book.
Oh, you got it.
Yes. So I got his book, Dream Guidance, Connecting to the Soul Through the Dream Incubation. I'm like, I just started reading it. I just got it yesterday, so it wasn't like I had a whole lot of time to read it, but I did get a little bit into it. And I have to say, it is so palatable, and there's so much information, but it's written in a way that's so understandable. And I just highly recommend it to anybody who wants to learn more about manifestation within your dream space, Dream Guidance, Connecting to the Soul Through Dream Incubation by Machiel Klerk. And I just wanted to share that because it's just a great addition to our library of knowledge.
Absolutely. And I like what in Machiel's Klerk's book there was a quote mentioned that dream incubation fosters personal growth and moves us away from any form of codependence on other people, books, dogmas, organizations, and substances. It breaks any form of dependence that is in conflict with a genuine, loving relationship with yourself and therefore with your dreams. Dream incubation is a direct relationship with dreaming with no need of interference with someone else. This incubation dream is a personal revelation to yourself. And just coming across this specific quote just really resonated with me as my dream journey really began with just really wanting to know myself on a deeper level, which then led to a whole identity metamorphosis. And so that really just, it spoke so well to me in the sense that no one else knows you better than your subconscious, than your unconscious mind, right? And the best way, personally, I think the best way to do that is through dreams. Like I've done
Yes.
forms of shadow work, and nothing hits as deep and as intense and as direct as doing the work through your dreams. And it's a very, slippery slope, as when you go into the dream space, it's kind of like the wild wild west. Like anything can happen, and you're
Oh yeah.
knows how to get you, in the sense of like, oh, you want to know, you want to do this, okay, like let's go for it. And it's not going to always be a very pleasant experience, but when you really take on that, I guess, leap of faith, or just have that strength within yourself and just like, okay, I'm going to do this, those really intense moments are just what really strengthens who it is that you are, and you really begin to know yourself deeper. And so it really makes sense personally that dream incubation would be just such a profound, practice when you have time to do that.
I 100% agree with you. I have tried different practices and nothing has affected me more profoundly and more deeply than the dream space. The dream realm has opened my eyes to so much, and it really just is incredible the experiences you can have. I mean, I've said this before, but it really like when you work with your dreams and the more you pay attention, the more things become stronger and you become more lucid and everything is just real. You don't ever feel like you really sleep. You have one foot in the waking realm and one foot in the dream realm, and it's like you're constantly awake in different planes, and it's an incredible experience. I mean, I have had such profound encounters with dream people. I have had precognitive dreams that just blow my mind every time they come to fruition. Dreams that open the doors and pathways to a deeper layer of myself, like going down and down and down into the infinite well of me. um, and yeah, you're right. Nothing knows you more than yourself. And even if you consciously don't understand yourself, you unconsciously do. Your subconscious knows you. With trauma built up and other things, it can put those walls up and block you from it. But you do know yourself better than anyone else. So yeah, I 100% agree with you in that. And yeah, I dream work is a whole other thing. It's a whole other thing.
It's a journey, and it's a lifelong experience. And
Yeah.
once you get into it, if you have the perseverance, the discipline, and the curiosity, like it's a lifelong thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's always something deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's so expansive. Like there's no end in sight, which is,
Nope.
I love it. So before we get into the actual examples and dreams, pertaining to dream incubation specifically, I want to just ask you, Alexis, and those of you who are listening, definitely feel free to leave us your experiences, your thoughts, questions in the comments. But Alexis, how was your dream space as we were in between these eclipses? And I want to just share with everyone, the eclipse season essentially started around September 7th. There was a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. It was a super moon. It was a harvest moon, and Pisces moon is like the epitome of like falling into the dream realm, into the deep abyss and the intuition, and just losing yourself in between worlds. And here we are on the other side with a solar eclipse, new moon in Libra, which actually within itself is a sign that is very cerebral, right? And so it's really interesting to kind of get both experiences. And of course, you can always look to where Libra is in your birth chart to get an understanding of where this part of your life, and also Pisces, of course, where these parts of your life are being activated and how that comes forth. And so, Alexis, yeah, how is your dream space, in between these eclipses?
My dream space has been so bright and chaotic and heavy and deep and just an unravel of unknowns and knowns brought to the surface. Um, just the between last week's episode and this week's episode, I had a dream almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it each of them were very in intense. I felt very strongly within them. Um, my lucidity waves through the dream. Like I always have consciousness that I'm dreaming. My limits go up and down of what I'm able to do, or how I'm able to navigate. But the last week especially, my dreams have just been insane. And I know that from last week to this week, I did practice, every day dream incubation, dream manifestation. So that definitely had a role to play. But I think just overall, from that lunar that lunar eclipse to this solar eclipse has just been heavy,
Mm-hmm.
heavy in the dream realm.
Yeah. Yeah. And really vivid. That's the thing. It's like I've been talking to other people too, and the dreams have been vivid and just weird.
Yeah.
Like having dreams that I don't usually have, where it's like one I had a couple of days ago, I was being chased by a ravenous polar bear. And the dream started out as I think I was at a school or some sort of community type environment. And I was with people that I knew. And then I know I like looked over, like turned to my right, and I saw these two people trying to shove a tiger into a cage. And then I was like, oh, wow. In the dream, I was like, I really hope that they get that tiger in there, because that tiger is like, it's angry and it wants to, like, it does not want to go in that cage. And while that was happening on the other side, I just happened to see that there was a polar bear that was like just out. It needed to go in a cage next, but it was just there. And at that point, when I noticed it, it started to like run and run after people. And then it began to run after me, and it was a whole chase scene. I was in and out of water. I was like through a cityscape. It was so bizarre. But what was really interesting was that it wasn't a dream of like anxiety. Like there was a little bit of anxiety because I'm being,
Yeah.
but it was more of like a thriller, like a suspense. And I thought that was interesting. And so, yeah, I've just been having really incredibly vivid dreams. And I would say they're a little out of the ordinary of what I'm used to.
Yeah. I mean, that I liked the aspect of it that you weren't really fearful. You weren't really like having intense anxiety, that it was like a thriller. Was there even maybe like excitement, or was it more so just like thriller kind of stress kind of?
That's thriller stress. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, and it's so interesting at this point, like realizing how lucid I am in dreams, like more so after the fact, where I remember recalling in the dream, because as I was saying, like I was like moving through water, and then at some points I was in a city, and it was like when I was under the water, when I was in the water, it was like the period of time that I was under the water was in the dream. I recall, like I was like, this is not like a normal, this is almost like not possible for me to be under the water this long and swimming as fast as I was. But it's interesting because it's like I don't like I have some elements of consciousness, like awareness, but then it's not the full on, like lucid experience where I'm like, taking control and things. And so it's really interesting, to have experienced that.
Yeah, it almost seems like you're going through like you're passing through different aspects of your life within that dream. Like
Yeah.
you're running from this thing, but as you're running from this thing, you're going through different like
Hmm.
um aspects of your life or your challenges or your experience. That's very interesting.
Yeah. When I looked it up in the dream dictionary, it did mention, of course, looking at the the animals of as aspects of you, or what the situation is telling you about yourself, like what you're avoiding, but or what you could potentially be avoiding, but also, what is the nature of the feeling, the feeling tone, so to speak, of the dream. And as I mentioned,
Hmm.
it wasn't a nightmare. It was more
Hmm.
thriller. It was like action. It was like, how far can I go?
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It almost too like if I were to break this down, what immediately pops in my head, and I could be totally wrong, but it's almost like running from your mortality in a way, because polar bears are going extinct, and
Mm-hmm.
it almost feels like that type of energy of like extinction, aka mortality, eventual death, eventual nothingness. Like I that's what I got from that
Yeah.
little bit. It's
And
like,
because with polar bears, like humans are on the menu. Like polar bears will eat pretty much anything, especially because, of their landscape and their environment where it's like, I need to eat, I need to survive,
the scarcity. Yeah.
scarcity. And so they'll eat a human. That's definitely a thing. And they're big. So it was like
Whew.
I can like literally this polar bear had like blood like all over its like mouth where it was
Mm.
almost like, like it had rabies, but not like, yeah, it was just rabid. It was rabid, ravenous. It was crazy. But what was just so surprising, I was like, oh, I would think that would be a nightmare, but that's not how it was felt. Like that's not how it was perceived and experienced in a dream. So
It's
that
interesting how that
yeah,
happens. Like I've definitely had dreams like that where if I like read it on paper, I would think it was a nightmare.
yeah.
But in reality, you're like, there's a calm, cool, collected aspect of the stress. It's like
Yeah.
calmness within the chaos, and maybe that's also just like a mode of living for all of us, like a collective unconscious energy.
Yeah. So that's just an example of, how have been experiencing this in between space. And one of the things I really reflected on, and this is like more of a personal reflection, to my birth chart, but I have Libra, ruling the 12th house as I'm a Scorpio rising. And
Me as well.
as well. And so I'm curious how this fits with you, but I'm realizing after this time I've spent with doing like the dream analyst with myself is that around this time of year, and yes, it's spooky season and we're watching all the scary things, and the energy is like focused on coming into the dark and going into these like places of fear and what have you. And I realized that this time of year my dreams are just so abundant and they're
Oh yeah.
all over the place, right?
Yep.
And so it's like it's really interesting, and I'm excited. Obviously, a year from now is a long time, but I'm really like clocking this in my mind. I'm like, okay, a year from now, next year, 2025, I'm going to see if this is the same experience, because I remember last year and I was really going through some health things, and I remember as I was getting closer and closer to Halloween, just like my dream space was wild.
Mm-hmm.
And it has evolved where it's not as scary. It's scary, but it's not as scary. It's not night.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're early. It's October 2nd. But it's at
No,
this point.
I completely get that. And I agree to an extent too. Like it almost feels like spooky season is bringing up internal fears
Yeah.
and like things that we have to face even more intensely than say in the middle of like April.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting that too, and it correlates. And the energy, I mean, and the veil is, lowering. The closer we get to Halloween, the veil is like getting thinner. So
Yeah,
like there's that aspect too where like maybe the veil being on the thinner side is allowing us to step into that other plane of existence more easily.
absolutely. And just to throw in a little bit more of like current astrology, Pluto will end its retrograde cycle in the next week or so. And so, sorry, I don't have the exact date right now, but the point is that Pluto is pretty much slowing down and it's like standing still. And when Pluto is in a place where it's changing its orientation, meaning that it's either like about to go direct or about to go retrograde. It's a place where the energy, the power of Pluto is really strong. And Pluto's, intention for us is to, assist us in transformation, but transformation that is so deep that it creates a metamorphosis within ourselves, within our soul. And the way in which it does that is through revealing and illuminating what is deep within the unconscious aspects of ourselves individually and collectively. And usually, because we're in such resistance and we've locked away, we've buried, we put up barriers and guards and walls, we don't want to go there. And so when it is revealed to us, it comes forth as like a nightmare. It comes forth as like a fear. And so it's going to be really interesting. That's something for all of us to keep in mind as we move through October, just like being very gentle with ourselves, with what shows up in our dream space, and not letting it really, consume us, or like us obsessing over what we experience, and knowing that this is for our benefit, right? And that's how I'm looking at the dream incubation as, when you are inquiring, when you are going deeper and you're meeting, your unconscious self where it is, that is essentially like you're gonna uncover some things that might not be maybe what you want to see, especially at this time. So I just want to say, just to put that out there, because I think that's really important. And I like what you're saying as far as like the veil being thin, and that's a real experience. And so it's easier, I would say, energetically, to access those very hidden dark aspects of ourselves that we have, been kind of keeping there in like that secret room, or like that basement or attic.
Absolutely. Dreaming can be extremely healing, but it can also be traumatizing in its own way. I think one of the hardest things is that it does bring up a lot from your subconscious, from your unconscious, from things that you've hidden away to protect yourself consciously.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be reliving past traumas through your dreams because it was never properly dealt with. So when Urania, you're talking about being gentle with ourselves, one of the other things I'm going to highly suggest doing with this period of time is sharing the dreams. Even if you come to us and you message us and you want to share them anonymously, or you want to share them not anonymously, or you want an interpretation, like, or you just want to reach out to your friends who dream and you feel comfortable expressing that with them, like, share those dreams, get them out of your head. And if you, like I said, if you don't feel like you have the ability to talk to anybody else about your dreams, feel free to reach out to us. We love seeing and exploring other people's internal, like, psyche and dream realm. So it's no bother at all. And we just want to make sure that, especially, like we said, with the veil lowered and us kind of feeling more vulnerable and things being more intense, that you're not alone with this. Unless, of course, you'll want to be alone. But,
Yeah,
like, generally speaking,
right.
if you feel like you need a place to put these dreams, we have, like, you have us. You can put them in our email or message us on Instagram,
Yeah.
whatever feels comfortable. But yeah, that's definitely something I suggest. With just, it can get intense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we're coming up to, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, we are coming up to the darker periods of the cycle, of the solar cycle or the annual cycle. And so, yeah, it could get a little bit intense at this time. And I'm saying that as someone who lives in upstate central New York, and it is, whew, the darkness of November is a real thing. So we definitely encourage you to share whatever's coming up for you in the dream realm. So coming back to dream incubation, and I'm going to share my experience here. One of the interesting points, or points that I like that we discussed last week, was asking the right question and leaving it open-ended, which is good. I like that directive, because for me, I tend to get really specific because I love doing ritual. I love setting intentions. And so in the Capricorn aspect of myself, I'm like, let's create this like very strong, like boundary, and let's just be very definitive. And so I like the idea of opening up the question, you don't want to ask a yes or no question. And what I really liked the most was asking to show me, because the dream space tends to show us through imagery, through symbolism, the message, right? The guidance. And so, another inspiration for our previous conversation on dream incubation was my experience of leading up to last week's episode. I had two dreams that felt very, very correlated. And it was the first dream was clear. The second dream was kind of confusing. And I'm like, okay, I need a third dream. I like my messages in three. So please, that was my thing. I was like, I want to have a third dream around this. And so, as I mentioned, I was going out of town um, over the weekend, which was leading up to the Mercury Kazemi. And I was at first nervous about, how's this going to work, because I'm not at home and I don't have all my resources. And then, of course, via our discussion last week, I was like, oh, actually, this is a great opportunity to see if, it is more beneficial to, do the dream incubation away from home. So, long story short, it was interesting because my weekend was filled with drinking wine, going to vineyards, hanging out with friends, really exhausted, a lot going on. But nonetheless, I was able to lucid dream, and I haven't lucid dreamt in months. And like I would say pretty much the majority of the summer. Like the last time I lucid dream was probably at the end of spring. So there have been at least 2 months that I did not have a lucid dream. And so I was really, surprised and excited that I had a lucid dream. And it was done through the wake back to bed method. I wasn't necessarily intending to have a lucid dream, but I had woke up in the middle and like early in the morning, and I was up for like probably like an hour. And I know they recommend, being up for like 30 minutes and focusing on your dream. And I was focusing on my like previous dreams and just, the energy that I was in pertaining to those dreams. And so it made sense that when I went back to sleep, I didn't necessarily drop into a dream pertaining to that, but I ended up coming to, the full lucidity in my dream space. And once I realized, I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm lucid, which is always like an aha moment. It's like I'm like a little kid in a candy store. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm lucid and this is exciting. And so in that moment, I said to my dream space, to the dream god, as I like to say, the sky god, and I was like, can you show me what it would look like if I pursued this connection with this specific person, which was connected to the previous two dreams that I had. And what I was shown, and before this point, I was lucid and other things were happening. I was making other actions and I was getting bored in the lucid dream. It wasn't a long lucid dream. And so by the time I got to this point, it was like, I'm kind of doing some work to stay lucid and to let the dream last. And so when I asked the sky god this question, or that had this request, what happened was that I began to see like things were changing in my mind's eye, and I began to see, a starry sky, so black sky with like, the typical star, silver, white starlight. And then it came through, it kind of condensed to like a tunnel. So like almost like you're astral traveling, like if you've seen those shows where you're going through a tunnel and it's just like, it kind of speeds up and you see the starry background as you're traveling. So that's what happened. And then that's all that happened. And I like woke up and I was like fighting to like move through it. I'm like, oh my God, like I could feel that I was like coming more and more conscious. And so that was essentially my dream incubation experience. I hope to, and I'm still, doing the dream incubation, and hopefully something else will come through. I think it's easier for me personally at this point to be lucid and have the dream incubation and ask the questions. But yeah, so that was the experience that I had. So kind of a success, but not quite. I'm still confused by the answer. So
Do you feel like so it was a starry sky that led through like a tunnel, right? Like led into the
like a
tunnel.
portal, yeah.
Yeah, like a portal. But there was nothing there. It was just black.
Yeah, well with the stars, but yeah, I was like, I didn't reach the destination or whatever was on the other side.
Do you feel like that was like a message, like maybe that's not within your path because it's just emptiness aside from the stars?
I think that like what I got from it was that like I was like maybe that kind of came up. I can't really think of that right. Like right, I think the biggest thing was that it felt incomplete.
Yeah.
Like it was like, you know, yeah, it's hasn't been written or it's like it's just incomplete. So you're traveling. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just felt really incomplete. Like I can't
Maybe because
really
maybe because with this you could be indecisive, and because you're indecisive there's no one way, and you have
right.
to make your decision before you can be revealed any kind of hints of to that path.
Literally have no conclusions with it. Like it feels incomplete. Like it's like I'm
That's
trying
really interesting.
like it's yeah, because there was like it felt like something was happening, like I was going somewhere, but again, it was like I woke up and it was like incomplete. That would be the way I would describe that.
I would ask it again. Like I would do
Yeah.
if you're able to, I would do that again. But like after you make a decision, make a decision on what you want and then ask it again and see what
Yeah.
is revealed to you then.
And I like that you say make a decision because that's literally such an important message for this week specifically is that like moving from like through this solar eclipse and into the rest of the week, especially by the end of the week, is there's like a focus on, there's an emphasis on making a decision. And I feel that I'm pretty much there. Like I'm there, like no. And so yeah, I we'll see what happens again. And I've definitely the intention is there. I haven't been very like I haven't been not necessarily specific, but I haven't been very like ritualistic with it, which is what I usually am. And so I think maybe once I do that, I'll get some clarity around it. But yeah, no, you're spot on with that interpretation.
It just feels like you're at like a celestial fork in the road.
Yeah,
Like
it's like where am I going to end up? Who knows? It's like
exactly. That's so interesting. I'm so excited to hear more about this as like we talk about it and this practice kind of continues and you make your decisions. This is going to be a really interesting path. I'm excited. Thank
yeah.
you for sharing.
Mhm. So what about you? What's been your dream incubation experience?
So I'm going to try to go through these as quickly as possible because I have a lot. So last week we talked about dream incubation. I mentioned how the night prior to, I like had laid down in bed and I just repeated in my head until I fell asleep, show me the stars, show me the stars. So I got a little glimpse of a starry sky. I was laying down looking up and I could feel like the cold air and whatever. That was it for that.
Mhm.
But after our conversation, I decided to every single night repeat in my head before I go to sleep to please send me a message that'll help me move forward in my like path where I am right now. Basically something along the lines of like guidance for where I'm at in my life right now.
Mhm.
And I said that every single night and I feel like each one of these dreams was their own message and um definitely highlight aspects that I need to work on, parts of myself that are being revealed. And so yeah, I'll just go right into it and we'll go from there. So the first one that I'm going to share is from Friday, September 27th. So this night I dreamt that I was working at a child center on the side of the river. So if
Mhm.
the street is here, on one side is the river, the other side is the child center I'm working at. And the child center I'm working at is small. It's like 6 to 7 kids, not a huge place. And I remember I was there with a couple other women, and we were getting the kids into their bathing suits and putting their sunscreen on and stuff because we were going to walk them down to the river. So we get that all situated. We walk them across the road down to the river, and they go into the riverbank with the other kids because there's a bunch of families there.
Mm-hmm.
They're fine. They're playing. They're having fun. But as I'm walking down this path, because, you know, one person usually stands in front of the group and one person stands behind the group so that all the kids are sandwiched between you and you can keep an eye on them. So I was in the back of the line. So as the kids dispersed into the water, as I was walking down into the sand, I saw a bunch of small snakes slithering around me. But these small snakes, as I was walking, were frightened by my appearance and were slithering away to the sides. However, there was one snake that I spotted that was in what looked like a sand cave, but it was really like a sand castle that had been washed over by the tides. So the snake, I can see its head and it's huge. It's huge. And I'm like, okay, the energy is a little off and I'm nervous about these kids and these people. So I need to like take care of this issue, because every time I approached the snake, it would hiss at me or snap at me to try to bite me. I kept trying to grab it. I kept trying to grab it, and it kept like almost biting me and almost biting me, to where I got really frustrated. And all of a sudden I was with a person that I dream about a lot. And I just kind of like was caressing his like hip for a second. And I realized that I was not where I was before. And I was like, wait, this is weird. And then I went back to where I was on the beach. And I tried to get the snake again. But the essence of this person that I have dreams about was there, kind of like giving me support and guidance. And I finally had grabbed this snake, and trigger warning, I bashed the head in until it was dead. Like I finally got it and killed it because it was a danger to everybody around us, and I needed to make sure that everybody was safe. So I finally grabbed it and killed it, and I threw it on the grill so we could eat it. And then I woke up. So that was my dream from Friday night. And I actually drew like a little visual of the snake in that little cave thing. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That to me was such it really highlights how I am in my waking life, where like I spend a lot of time trying to protect and be there for everybody around me, and at my own expense. And I feel like with this person that I dream about a lot, that is a representation of myself, like coming into a palatable, attractive, like person. Like my own dream guide from myself was helping me, like holding my hand to figure out how to navigate. And it was just a representation of me like really needing to be there for myself, which is something I struggle with.
Yeah, that was definitely what I got to, as far as what I noted was that, like, you know how snakes are usually represented as wisdom, especially like forbidden or like venomous or dangerous, like information and knowledge. Like you can even think about the story of Adam and Eve and the snake being like that point of temptation. And so that's literally what I wrote, is that essentially it felt in the dream that you were protecting others from wisdom or from some sort of knowingness that may be potentially harmful for them in whatever way. And so I don't like, and that kind of, in a way, can feel, you know, maybe that could be some sort of just some, not necessarily resistance, but some cautionary point of yourself when it comes to guiding others. And
I think it's definitely resistance.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, I don't know, you know, either how to communicate this thing, or, you know, what if something comes up that is kind of harmful in the dream state? Like, how do I like, you know, communicate that and share that? And maybe I should just like kill it. So, you know, we don't have to worry about it. Or just like maybe, you know, what's interesting now that I'm saying this too is like, I love that I don't love that you killed it, but I love the aspect of like killing it and then eating it, because it was like, some sort of representation of consuming it in a different way. So like, if you can't take it full on, like here it is in your face, like how about we take our time to, ingest it in a different way? And how do we sit with that? And how can we consume it in like from a different perspective and maybe
I
slower way?
absolutely agree with that. And I think that you're right. It is 100% resistance. And I think that the snake really represented transformation and my resistance with transformation.
Yeah.
Because I hold myself back a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And I know some of it is controllable and some of it's not, but
Yeah.
it's there nonetheless. So I was really like, that first night that I got that message, I was like, all right, well, thank you. This is definitely helpful. So then
Yeah.
I'll go right into the next stream if you're ready.
Yeah.
I know I'm trying to go through these so quickly
No,
because I
you're
have
good.
a lot.
You're good.
So September 29th. Now this was Sunday. Yeah,
Mhm.
Sunday. So that night I dreamt I was at a resort on the beach with my family and friends in preparation for my wedding. I looked outside the glass doors to the beach and saw the tide pulled out extremely far as if it was leading to a tsunami, but the wave never dropped. So it pulled out completely
Mm-hmm.
and never came back.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I like I already know like for myself what that to an extent is representative, but when we're finished, I'm interested to see what you think. We realized we needed to go back to our house because we forgot some of the stuff we needed for the event. My dad and I decided to go. He was the one driving and he was driving his truck, but the driver's side was on the right side instead of the left side as if we're in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So he was driving on the right side. I was on the left side in the passenger seat, kind of like looking out the window at the left side of the road. So it was cold. We were going through the dark forest, like a road through a dark forest, and it was raining, and it was just, you know, the trees just canopied so, and it was so green and so vibrant. And I was just looking out the window, and as we're driving, I see in the distance an overturned tree, like a huge log of a tree that overturned. And I see somebody walking towards the, like against us, like traffic wise.
Mm-hmm.
And they're wearing a black raincoat. And when they lift their head, I see it's my grandfather who has since passed. So he was like soaking wet, muddy, and just shivering. And we loaded him up in the truck and decided, you know what, let's just go back to the resort because it's closer to here than it is to go to our house to get the stuff. Let's get him cleaned up and then we'll take care of everything. So we go back to the resort and we have towels on him and we're grabbing clothes. And I open a drawer. We reach in to grab like a pair of, we were in some random person's room. It wasn't even our room. We like reached in to grab like fresh like underwear and pants from the drawer. And I see in the top drawer like a pair of my underwear, which was
Mm-hmm.
really weird. And then I woke up.
Hmm.
That was bizarre. That was just weird. Like
Yeah, I
the
have to,
ending was really weird to me. Like it just kind of came out of nowhere.
yeah, yeah, and that was, I mean, as far as like the underwear aspect, I feel like it was kind of like a hint of vulnerability. Like whenever I think of like, I'm like, oh, that's random. And but I think what I got and what I noted just from that in general, is this the same grandfather that had dreams? Like,
He passed away already. I had a dream of his passing and
right.
I've had visitation dreams from him multiple
Yeah.
times since then. Yeah.
Like, dreams, like he had an interesting dream space too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a feeling that as far as your initial dream incubation inquiry, as far as, what to do with the energy right now, like, where you are in your path, I definitely got the sense from that your grandfather is a bit of a spirit guide for you, or at
Oh,
least like
for sure.
realm. And so that was pretty much that. That was like what I got. It's like,
Absolutely. And I do feel
yeah,
that. I feel like it was a like a vulnerability. Like a
It's
connection to vulnerability, especially him being so vulnerable. Like, he was his age when he passed away in my dream. So he was really old, very skinny and frail, and you know, he had dementia, so he wouldn't know where he was
yeah.
if this happened to him. And he was soaking wet, and he was prone to pneumonia, like in real life. He almost died from pneumonia like 5 times. Like, it was insane. So like there is that aspect of vulnerability that really like leans into this. And I think what's really interesting was that tsunami tide that was pulled away and never came back,
Mhm. Yeah.
because that to me represented, there was a moment in this month where I really needed to have a cry and a
Mhm.
release, and I never did that.
Right with you. Yes.
So it's like I'm on hold. My vulnerability, my release is on hold. And I just, all of that, like, I thought the underwear was weird at first, but now that you brought that up, I didn't even think of the vulnerability aspect of it, and now I really feel like that connects. Like
Yeah.
that connect I think that is entirely based on my need to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you mentioned as far as the tsunami, I was literally going to touch on that next. So that's right on point.
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about that.
Oh, I mean, you already said it. Like you said exactly what I was thinking. So I think that was like right on point.
Perfect. Well, then I'll go right into September 30th, the next dream that I had that was significant with my dream incubation. So I was contacted by my former coworker to cover her shift because she was going to a concert in Europe. She had somebody covering the whole week, but she needed one person to cover one day. Now, in real life, I would never do this. I love my old coworker, but I don't think I would ever go back to that business in particular because it just wasn't good for me. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
but in my dream, I did. And that right off the bat is like, people, I feel like, is an aspect of people pleasing that I have an issue with, like accepting things that I don't really feel comfortable doing in order to help out someone else.
Yeah.
Um, so I accepted it. When I got to the building, I noticed that instead of it just being myself, like normally it would be in real life, there was a lot of people, a lot of doctors and nurses in this lounge area that I was seated at. And I was given a tablet for my who I was covering, and I couldn't work the tablet. It like was glitching and putting out weird messages in different like unearthly languages that I couldn't read.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like actively annoyed because I'm lucid in my dreams. It's like, again, it waves throughout my dreams what I change, what I don't change, what I'm able to change, what I'm not able to change.
Hmm.
So I'm like frustrated because I have the awareness, but like I'm not able to get this to work for the life of me. I'm like, okay, this is a lesson. Clearly, this is a lesson because anyway, so
Can interrupt for 1 second because I don't want this to go away, but like the nature of how you experience your dream state as far as like lucid and changing and not changing literally speaks to your Libra qualities. Of like Libra is always like, I don't know, should I do this? It's like that indecisive experience. And so it's really interesting and just like you really can't make this up that you're experiencing that in the dream states where it's like you have full control, in the lucid experience, but in that Libra essence, it's like, well, should I do this? Should I go with it? Should I change it? I don't know. Let's just go and see how it happens. Like it
especially
so much sense when you
no, I completely get that. And I feel that because, especially with the fact that I am somebody who really loves to be aware and lucid in my dream, but I feel as though the message that's coming through is really important and I don't want to disturb the message. So it's
lucid dreaming for so long. It's like,
yes, exactly. And it's like, to me, it like I as soon as I wake up in my dream, I have lucidity. I know I'm dreaming. It's just I get to a point like where I'm acting in a play because I want to experience what's going on. Like, it's a mystery.
yeah,
I don't want to create something new. I want to follow the mystery of it and
Yeah.
learn more about myself. And so anyway, that was a great point to jump on, because it's definitely a thing I have difficulty with in my lucid dreams, but I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing for me to do
Yeah.
that.
No,
I think that it's a
yeah.
very, like, actually a very grounded thing for me to have that indecisiveness within my dream realm, whether or not, or like how much to change and how much not to
You're
change
like,
for it to be authentically flowing.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes complete sense. And it's like a release of control, which, like not a lot of people can do. Like my Capricorn shows in my dream because I'm like, okay, let's do this. I'm like the boss bitch in my dreams.
Yes, even like when you're bored and you're like,
It's
okay,
just,
let's go, let's move on
what are we gonna
on
do?
to the next.
I'm just like, this yeah. So I mean, it's just an interesting. I was like, this really is, yeah. But
I
anyway.
love that you brought that up, thank you. But anyway, so back to where I was in the dream. After a while of not being able to figure this tablet out, I decided to walk into the dining area. So the dining area was huge, and it was, the style of it was like a Ruby Tuesdays, almost like that type of style restaurant. Very like, I don't know, browns and reds and greens, and like kind of earthy, but kind of like 80s, but kind of early 2000s, and
So they did.
just wood, and I don't know, it was, that's how I would describe it. Low lighting, and there was a buffet that was in the middle of the room, and this huge buffet divided where the doctors and nurses were seated and where the patients were seated. And the patients were all in-house residents with disabilities, and I was paired with a man this day who was deaf, and I didn't know sign language.
Mm-hmm.
So I went over to introduce myself, realized he was deaf. I didn't know what he was saying, and I couldn't communicate with him, which was very, very stressful because he was getting upset. He was getting very upset that I was there to assist him and I couldn't understand him. So after a while of trying to figure it out and not succeeding, I left and I walked into the other side of the room and I sat down at the table and needed a breather. And I just needed to like just sit down and get away, like almost escape. And then I was like, you know what? I need to go back and try this again. But luckily, this time when I went back, he had lifted up his menu and was pointing to what he wanted. And he was pointing to lemon chicken and rice. Like that was very specific. He was like, I want the lemon chicken and rice. Not saying it, but pointing to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, perfect. I was like, that's perfect. I'm going to go get that. So I walk over to the buffet and I'm circling around this buffet and I am not finding this food for him. And I am going into not panic mode, but I'm getting more stressed out and flustered because I'm like, I'm supposed to be caring for this person and I'm failing at everything I'm doing. Every single thing I'm doing for this person, I'm failing at. And I'm getting upset, and I get to the end of the food buffet and I'm like, all right, well, let me take a second. Let me do some deep breathing. And I closed my eyes and did deep breathing. And I was just like, please, I need help. And the essence of this person came into my dream, who he had like a longer gray white beard, and just was, I don't know, an unknown person to me that came into my dream and pointed like to an area in the buffet, and where he pointed, the dish that the person that I was working with appeared, and it said lemon chicken and rice.
Yeah.
And I just like was relieved. I just had this moment of like full relief, and I was like, oh, thank goodness, this is I thank you so much. I was like, thank you so much. And his essence kind of stuck around, but he disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought the food to the guy. And at the time I got back to where he was, there was like other residents and nurses sitting, and they were all kind of like having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And I got back and he was kind of like irritated with me, but I said, I'm so sorry. Like I couldn't find the food you were looking for. and I'm sorry it took so long, and I just, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what I can do to make this better, but I'm so sorry. And the nurse signed to him what I was saying, and he was like, it's fine, it's totally fine, like everything's situated now, like I have my food, don't worry about it. And then the residents and the nurses started all joking around, and I sat down, and the energy lightened up, and we were all kind of joking, and then I woke up.
Nice.
So that was that dream.
Mm-hmm. And I have analysis for it, but I'll wait until I'll hear the fourth one because I kind of want to see, because I'm seeing some sort of connection between the dreams. So I want to hear the last one to see.
I'm excited because I also see the correlation, and I kept asking for, before I went to bed, I was asking for a message that would help guide me through this point in my life. And I
Yeah.
really feel like these dreams were a result of asking for that.
Mm-hmm.
So this last dream I actually had last night into this morning, so October 2nd.
Yeah.
Last night I dreamt that George, my sister, and I were riding in a trailer attached to my parents' truck. The trailer was like a moving trailer. It wasn't accommodated for people. So we were just with a bunch of boxes and stuff in the back of this trailer. Everything was closed. Now, simultaneously, I could see us in the trailer. I could see outside of the trailer in my mind's eye, and I could see where my parents were driving in my mind's eye, like where, like in their, in the truck.
Yeah.
So we stop at a convenience store for a few minutes, and then, I can feel us and see us pulling away because I have, like I said, 3 perspectives of being in this dream. So we start to drive away, and it starts shifting and shaking, and we start hitting things. And here my dad is passing out while he's driving. I open the trailer up like it's a train cart, like a train car where you can pull, like it just slides and you're in between train cars and you can go across.
Mm-hmm.
And it's raining and it's cold and we're going quickly, but if I don't make a decision right now, we're going to crash and possibly be injured or die. So I jumped from the back of the trailer, onto the bed of the truck, which has a cover over it. And it's a little slippery and the wind's getting me and it's raining. So I'm like climbing up to the front where I open the window to the back of the truck, and I climb in just like the top part of my body and stuff. I'm in, and I grab the wheel and I like steady the wheel as my dad's passed out and my mom is frozen. So I am steering us kind of off of the where we were going, because it was in the direction of trees and big boulders. And I steady us and I slow us down, and then I pull the emergency brake.
Mm-hmm.
And then I woke up.
Hmm. Yeah, I think what I'm getting from, so as I mentioned with the first dream, it was like the protection of the wisdom and the information coming through, what might be potentially harmful, and just being able to serve that in a way that is like better, easier for them to consume. So that was the first one. The second one clearly pointed to your grandfather as a spirit guide, especially in those moments of really intense emotions. It's like you're experiencing, like you didn't like have the full release of like the emotions that you're experiencing. And that was definitely clearly symbolized in the tsunami wave pulling back, but not like, releasing forward. And then in the third dream, what stood out to me was as far as like the work and like being a work dream and going back to a work that you didn't really fully resonate, but then also there were doctors and nurses, which those are like literally the servicemen, like the ones that really do a lot of the hard work. They're the caregivers, and just the nature of your experience in that dream, not being able to, there could be some fears around not being able to serve your clients or those who are in need of your service, not being able to serve them effectively, efficiently, and clearly. And then with this fourth dream, and I thought it was interesting because I noted this even in the second dream, and I noted it because in previous dreams, your dad is always like the one driving the car. Or like there's always like there's a like when he's in your dreams, it's like him in a car and like you together. Right. So it's interesting. I feel like your dad almost can be subconsciously some sort of like safety
Oh,
net,
for sure.
out of security. But in this particular dream, you were stepping in to secure the whole situation. Right. And so I think
Absolutely.
profound as a sense of a fourth dream of being, of, um, showcasing that you do have the power to either save the day, to be supportive, like you could show up in those moments of chaos. And I think these series of dreams were just showing how you are very strong in your knowing, in your craft, and just how you can be, helpful for people, and supportive. So that's pretty much what I got. Very,
I
very
love that.
message.
I love that interpretation. And yeah, I do feel like
Yeah.
it's very clear messaging. Like the third dream that I had to me also represented almost like a visual to the experiences that I had when I worked in a place where that didn't fit for me, and
Mm-hmm.
what I was sacrificing, and how my frustration and like depression and way of being just overall was so bad. And I feel like there was an aspect of that pulled in, like where I'm at in my path now is where I need to be. So like the fact that I chose to go back and cover for my coworker in a job I didn't even want to do. um I felt like that was like a, even though in the dream I took it, in real life it was, to me, that was, you're where you need to be. Like you did your, you had your experiences in this place, and you're never going to go back to this, and where you are now is where you need to be.
I like that.
And it was interesting too, because a lot of the, almost all of the nurses and doctors were like NPCs.
Nice.
The person, there were, it was just me and really the man I was with, who was disabled, who were present. And then the person who came to help me was like otherworldly. So that dynamic too is interesting.
That like adds to the layer of like you're always being divinely guided, whether it's, your grandfather in certain cases or some other, energy or being like especially in the sense of like I like that you mentioned that they were NPCs, because what that brings to mind for me is just my own personal perspective of, and this is kind of out there, this is my Aquarian nature, but it's like, we have these background characters. Like if you think about, okay, we're here on in this earth experience, we have a mission, we have a role, and some people like myself also can see in a certain perspective, like, oh, what if earth is like everything's a play, like it's all like a movie. And so, and like from my perspective, like I'm the star. And it's really interesting because that's what, when you mention that, that's kind of what I visualize in this certain experience where it's like, you are the star. Like you have a role and yeah, everything's going on around you, but like what you're doing and the work that you're doing and how you're showing up and being supportive is really important. And in that space, like you're always divinely guided. Like there's something or someone there with you nonetheless.
And also the aspect of asking for help. I literally asked for help in my dream. And if,
Yes.
anybody knows me, I don't ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
You can come to me for anything, well, except money, because I don't really have it, but anything else. And I will bend over backwards to help and be as supportive as I can. But when it comes to asking for help, I have such a difficult time. So the fact that this represented me asking for help and having success afterwards because of the help I asked for is a huge indication of how I need to go forward with my personal life. And back to the fourth dream, honestly, to me too, this represented the baggage that my parents carry. It
Mm-hmm.
represented me kind of breaking away from that. Because
Yeah.
we all to an extent carry our parents' baggage,
Oh yeah.
what, how we were raised, you know especially with mental health being more prevalent now than it was then, like the importance of being healthy mentally. They carried a lot of their parents' baggage, and then, we carried a lot of theirs. And I feel like, especially being that I was like in the back of like a moving vehicle, it was like I was being carried with the baggage, and me getting to the front and kind of stopping the vehicle and becoming more in control, it almost felt like a breakaway. Like it was like something healed within me.
Yeah, no, that's very spot on. And see, that's a perfect example of something that you personally know and would and caught on to, as this is very personal and direct and intimate to you, that like I would, in this particular dream, I wouldn't have, I that didn't even cross my mind. So
But that's why it's so important to have these
yeah,
conversations, because it brings to light different perspectives, and you go deeper and deeper into the messages, because these messages are not, it's not just one thing. And that's something I've learned a lot when focusing on my dreams. You're not getting one message out of the dream. You're getting a ton of messages, and you need to dig them out. You need to do the work and figure out what each thing means to you. And having the conversation opens the perspective, it
Mhm.
opens the doors. So you can either be like, well, I know it's not that, but that led me to this, or that I didn't even think about. And now that connects so deeply.
Yeah.
um and I really do, like, I feel like I asked for messages to help guide me through this part of my life, and I feel like the messages I got will directly help me move through the like my life right now, because it is so spot on with everything that I'm dealing with. And it's that sleep, that dream incubation, it's manifesting, and you get the results. It's so crazy. And to go into that, I also have an anonymous share. Someone who listens to the podcast did their own experiment with or dream incubation. Urania, I know you're going to find this really interesting. So their request in their dreams this week was, grant me peace.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
with us, we asked questions and we got answers through our dreams.
Mm-hmm.
This is somebody who has very anxiety driven, if not nightmares, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They asked to grant them peace, and they slept very peacefully without remembering their dreams for the week.
Wow. That's that's amazing.
I find that, and I talked to them about it, and I said, it seems like you got what you asked for. You needed, and they're like, oh, I'm sleeping a lot more than I want to right now, because like I feel like because of this. And I was like, well, maybe it's because your sleep has been so restless
Yeah.
that you're now feeling the peace of being asleep, and you're trying to compensate and recharge where you haven't been able to.
Yeah.
And like how, your dreams are a reflection of your inner self, your outer self, you're waking and you're asleep. And when you have a lot of chaos in your brain or in your daily life, in like what you encounter, if there's a lot going on and it's showing up in your dreams that way, it really feels as though finding that peace in your waking life is really important to
Mhm.
help benefit your ability to navigate your dream life. Like, I think after this period of getting peace within your dream, there might, and you bring that to your waking, like you feel better and more rested, and then you kind of feel better, your mood is a little better, and you can kind of incorporate more, you know gratitude practices, or meditation, or just acknowledging your importance in this existence. You'll start to see that balance out in your dream realm and your waking realm.
Mhm.
I just thought that was very, very interesting, because where we were asking questions and getting the answers through our dreaming, they literally got it from not dreaming or not remembering their dreams, which is extremely healing in that way.
Yeah. I think, and that just goes to show there's two important points from that share of the anonymous dream share, is that one, that's one of the things like I said, I recommend, in specific with Mercury Kazemi, where it's like you can ask a question or you can ask for healing. And in this case, they asked for a peace. And that was bestowed upon them in the way that they were meant to experience that. And then the other important point as well is the integration process of whatever it is that you experience. And that's the beauty of dream work in itself, is that not only do you have an intention or a request, or you're just in the space of experiencing, you will experience that, you're aware of it, you see it, and then the integration process is so like profound, because it's like, okay, I received this, I experienced this. Now, like, how do I integrate this into my conscious awareness or my waking life? And, that moment of peace, I think even just listening to the response on their end to that experience, where it's like, oh, well, now I feel like I'm sleeping a lot. That in itself can, if I was consulting this person, that in itself is also something to really sit with and reflect on, where it's like, you know, it's like then you kind of guilt yourself for sleeping too much, which a lot of us do, where it's like, oh, I'm so tired and I need more time. And then once you start to like sleep in and take the time for yourself, then you feel like a way about that, right? And so it's just a further integration process. And again, as we mentioned before, this is like an experience and a journey of really getting to know yourself very deeply. And yeah, so I love the examples tonight. They were so diverse and just so deep, as the dream space always provides us with these deep experiences. So yes, thank you for sharing.
Wednesday is all up in your
It's all
business
about
tonight.
to get
Like
out.
so much.
Yeah, I'm like,
To anybody who's listening and not watching, Urania has a beautiful black cat Wednesday, and she's always in the room with her when we do our lives.
always in the,
And today she has just been like,
she's loving up on
just
me.
loving up on you.
She knows I'm a little bit anxious, I guess, or stressed. Like, even though I feel really calm, I'm sure like I'm not as calm as I could be. As
Yeah.
just to share, we usually do these live streams live, or these chats live, and we didn't tonight because I had a break to my computer. And so that kind of disrupted our initial plans to do the live stream as we always do, which is very fitting for the eclipse energy, because eclipses are usually, um, they usually symbolize in astrology as disruptive, right? And so what's interesting though is that I'm really impressed with the way that I handled it and how I adapted to the situation. And I do see this Libra eclipse as more so of a new opportunities and an opening of possibilities and of balance within ourselves. And of course, you want to look to where Libra is in your birth chart, and you get more of a deeper understanding, especially if you have any placements of that. Alexis and I both share, Libra ruling the 12th house, as we are Scorpio risings. So I do feel that like what we've experienced leading up to this solar eclipse, especially like let's do dream incubation, I feel that was in a way like a 12th house experience, and like being
Oh, for
girl.
sure.
So it just, you can't make it up. So I'm
No. And again, like, with Pluto, or is your Pluto in Scorpio?
really.
With our Pluto and Scorpio and in the first house, I feel like that really plays a role in the 12th house Libra and the planet of dreams Pluto, and just like that deep, deep, deep well of information and knowledge and wisdom and experience coming up.
Also, to mention, Venus is in Scorpio right now in transit. And so Venus being the ruler of Libra, it's like that Libra experience, the Libra season, the Libra lunar cycle, and it is also being kind of described or colored in by Venus's transit and journey through Scorpio. So I mean, like, you literally can't make this up.
No, no, it's crazy. And I do want to add to this, like I talked about this a little bit before we got on the chat, but I want to mention it because I don't know, it was just a weird experience. Today I walked past a pigeon, and this pigeon was it was a white pigeon, and it was walking on the sidewalk. And as my boss and I walked past it, it jumped out into the road. Now, when I think of birds, you think, okay, cars come by, they fly off. I jokingly looked at this bird and I was like, don't get hit by a car. You're in the road. Be careful. So I went, moved my vehicle, and then walked back. And as we were walking back, we could see in the distance, we thought like the bird was still just hanging out in the road. But as we got closer, we saw that it was hit.
Mm.
And that to me was such a weird kickoff for this, I don't know, going into the season of like
Yeah.
death and dying.
Yeah.
It
And
was so,
into intuition as well as like it's interesting because pigeons of all the birds, like you got the street smarts. Like you're the one hanging out in the street. So you already know what time it is. And it's so interesting that that happened and that you just like, yeah. So I think that will
well,
reveal.
and it was hard because I asked my boss throughout the day. I was like, I didn't kill the bird, did I? Like that wasn't me.
No,
Like it wasn't my fault, right? Like I
not.
didn't put the bird in the road and I didn't run the bird over. But for some reason there's this pull at my heart like it's my fault. But I just thought that was such an interesting, like, you know, that may have been meant to happen. Like maybe the bird was dying and couldn't fly away, and being hit and immediately like killed was a better, more humane way for it to go than to live out like, an agonizing long death.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I just thought that was an interesting experience to have with the chiming in of the death and dying season.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And we'll, yeah, that's there and we'll definitely revisit it and see, what comes forth. But to me, that just feels like being in alignment with your intuition and just in this weird space of like deja vu, precognition, like being just like very connected with the unseen energies and what is also right in front of us.
Yeah, and I think that's why I felt so guilty, because there was an aspect of myself that knew,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, well, if I could have picked the bird up and put it on the sidewalk instead of continuing walking, even though there was a bunch of people around.
That
I
could
don't know.
into and that's when we start to look at the messages like in waking life and because that could play into just like more of the messages to the dream space. So the messages are everywhere, the guidance is everywhere.
Maybe I'll have a dream of that pigeon tonight.
Maybe we'll see. You have to let us
Oh,
know.
oh, okay. It's gonna start getting creepy.
Right. And speaking of creepy and spooky season, we are already on top of our next two topics, but we'll just share the next topic for our upcoming episode, which is going to be on astral travel. So if you have any questions or any experiences, dreams regarding astral travel, please share them with us at the innerversepodcast@gmail.com. We'll be so excited to read and share. We'll share, of course, anonymously what you've experienced in your questions. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, definitely subscribe. We will do live episodes, stream live chats as much as we can. And of course, follow us on Spotify. That will help to support us. And yeah, of course, leave your comments and experiences and everything. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I got.
I think so. I hope everybody gets through tonight's, new moon solar eclipse feeling refreshed and new tomorrow, and just like a weight lifted off your shoulders. Maybe the
You
heaviness
made
will
it.
clear up a little bit. And I hope you all enjoy your dream space. Until next time.
Until next time, everyone, sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams.
Bye.